Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from today. I am Gerardo Pelayo, the Chief Research Officer at Service Council. Welcome to another edition of our inService podcast. Today, we have a topic that I am very interested in. Everything that has to do with the service supply chain always rings close to my heart. And we're going to be talking about the next gen service contracts for the post warranty period. And part of the reasons why I'm excited about this is the service supply chain has historically been perceived as a cost center, as something that is supporting the overall organization, but not really playing a strategic role within that. And I'm very glad that today Ben Groeneveld has agreed to join me in the studio to talk about this. He's the industry principal at Syncron. We'll get to know him in just a second. But before, let me add a little bit to what we're saying that triggered us to say, hey, this is the right time to talk about this topic. I've mentioned before how growth is becoming more and more common mandate for service leaders across the spectrum, and that higher accountability it comes with consequences around the margin, around the revenue, and whether that um, means adapting to new ways in which value is delivered to the customers, which sounds great. But then the question emerges, are we going to be able to do that in a profitable way? And how do we communicate it to the customers? What are the mechanisms that we need to put in place so that we can have a predictable revenue stream that is healthy both operationally and commercially? So we're going to get into a lot of the how tos and picking on Ben's brain on this topic. Last, before we get to know him a little bit better, a reminder to our listening audience: we hope you are a participating audience today. You have the ability to comment if you have any questions, agreements, disagreements with the conversation. Please let us know. We'll do our best to embed the comments into the conversation. And a reminder as well that today's session, as always, is going to be recorded, so you can go back and review some of the commentary shared with your colleagues, all of that good stuff across anywhere where you listen to a podcast, really, as well as all of our social presence and our website. With no further ado, Ben, once again, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I've had the pleasure of getting to know you a little bit in some planning sessions. Have a long history of partnering with Syncron and the contributions that the organization has made with Service Council. But for those that might be less familiar, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and the work that Syncron does within the service space?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So Syncron is a software provider that is 100% dedicated to the aftermarket and the parts and service space. We've been around for a little over 30 years now. We come out of working in that space and have grown as the industry has really grown and it has morphed and developed some of the similar ways that you mentioned. We continue to see some of the same trends that you recently brought up. Our solutions are focused mainly in three main areas: parts planning, whether it be at the warehouse level or at the dealership level for manufacturers that want to have influence over their distribution network; parts pricing; and then what we call our service bucket, which is warranty processing, or then also service contracts, service agreement, pricing, and costing. So very relevant topic for what's right inside of Synchron's wheelhouse.
Yeah, thank you for that. And one thing that I'm aware of, and I don't want to fly through that, but you have a very interesting and well-rounded background. Do you mind sharing a little bit of what your journey has been in the profession as well?
Yeah, so it is an interesting, well-rounded journey. While working for Syncron as a software provider, I come from the customer side, where I spent the first part of my career, the first 15 years of my career, working for two equipment manufacturers here in the States. The first one was International Motors, so International Truck and Engines and School Buses. And then the second one was AGCO. So think Massey Ferguson, Fendt tractors. Had a variety of positions, all inside of parts and service. So I'm kind of grew up in this world, and then got introduced to software by actually choosing a software provider to help us plan our parts warehouses when I was at International. That led me to spend close to 10 years at Oracle working in their value chain planning practice. And I wanted to get spending time both on the planning or the service and the manufacturing side. After some period of time there, I wanted to get back to my roots, and Syncron was like the perfect fit. I get to work with the customers in the jobs that I used to have in the industries. You know, some of our customers are Ford, Nissan, Caterpillar, Volvo Construction, Kubota, Komatsu, and be able to work still in software, but be able to work with the type of people and the type of jobs that I used to have. And so I get to call and work with either people that where I had their old positions, or they were my bosses, my coworkers, and it's a really fun cultural fit for me here to do that. Kind of like the best of both worlds.
Nice. That's wonderful, and that's one thing that I want to exploit over the next 25 minutes or so. And I'll get right into it because I said at the top, service revenue is perhaps the new kid on the block for supply chain, in the sense that it's receiving the same or maybe as much, sorry, even more attention than traditional metrics like the fill rate and the stocking availability that are still important, but it's perhaps less understood because of it. We see in our latest service leaders agenda survey, 82% of the respondents said that they were increasing their targets for revenue during 2026 relative to the previous year. And it's not just the targets that are going up, but we also check, hey, what are the metrics that you're going to be most focused on during the year? Service revenue, with some significant difference, was the number one metric that service leaders have on their radar. So there's this consistency with the growth mindset. And not to start on the devil's advocate side, but I think it's important to talk about what are the things that could get in the way of achieving that. What are the dynamics that you're seeing in the market that could put those revenue targets at risk?
So what we're seeing is how I would say it is two sides of the coin. Okay. The reason why service revenue is becoming so much more important to manufacturers is because there's a couple of tailwinds driving that, and those tailwinds are bumping up against some headwinds and those challenges that you mentioned in your question. But first, let's just talk about the tailwinds. Most of our customers have aging vehicle or machine populations out there. Machines that typically lasted for 5 to 10 years are now lasting a decade or more, which means that there's more service opportunities out there. There's increased complexity to those machines or assets, no matter what type of machine you're manufacturing. And that longer time plan and the complexity means that there's more different ownership switches. So that creates an opportunity to make money for manufacturers. But what are the challenges then when you think about that? How do you exploit that opportunity? Is there's a rising cost of ownership here. We all know that materials are getting more expensive, parts are getting more expensive. Where does that cost transfer go to? And that'll probably be a common theme through the rest of our conversation. At the same time, I think what we're seeing from the end user base in almost all of our customer segments is an increasing sensitivity to the price of either the raw part, or fixing the machine, vehicle, the asset. So they're going to be pickier about who's doing that work, how that work is getting done, and what type of work is getting done, even though they want to keep that machine or that asset on in use longer. And then finally, what we're seeing now from a lot of our customers and the feedback that we're getting is that there's more channels to get that work done. So as manufacturers understand that there's this service opportunity for those machines or assets that are out there longer, the independent world, the third-party service world is also knows that there's that opportunity. So the question is, how do you tie and keep touch base with those customers outside of that post-warranty period in order to exploit those opportunities while blunting some of those challenges that are coming?
Yeah, yeah, indeed. There's a higher revenue potential, but it's not just going to materialize by itself, right? As you pointed out, one of the consequences of it is that the customers themselves become more self-aware,
Yeah.
and have to pay more attention about, hey, am I doing this in the best way? Is maintaining the OEM relationship in my own self-interest? So let's get into the how of that equation, because we do see that when we ask about the focus areas, for example,
Hmm.
for the same service leaders, the expansion of the service portfolio is second in the list, and it's only behind the incorporation of AI in the service ecosystem. So, from a strategic perspective, very high up there. 42% of respondents find this critical. And the question I have around it is, how is the commercial design of organizations being leveraged, or how should it be leveraged to help with this retention and growth of both the customers and the resulting revenue?
Yeah, an interesting way of thinking about it is if you think about the out of warranty service and capturing that in various different forms is almost like the what we would call like a retention anchor. It's a tool to keep that customer coming back to you, consuming parts, consuming services for the wrench. And what we're seeing is that almost every single one of our manufacturing customers are going to have some sort of version or move towards the trend of equipment as a service. Now, they may be pure EAS where they're just have an agreement out there. The customer buys that agreement and that becomes in perpetuity as they use the machine or the asset out there. Some of them may be just selling a contract for different types of service post the warranty period. And a lot of manufacturers will fall somewhere in between there. What we're seeing is where some of the manufacturers will fall is going to depend upon who's actually doing the service. So who's doing the wrench? Is it the manufacturer themselves, their service rep doing the service, which means that they have a direct billing relationship with the end customer? Is it an independent dealer or distributor that the manufacturer has to have a relationship with? And depending upon where that model is, you're going to create manufacturers are going to create almost their own version of equipment as a service going forward. And where those manufacturers settle in that world is where they're going to be able to unlock almost a new revenue stream because they're going to be able to servitize that process going forward.
Yeah, and as we were speaking, one of the thoughts I have is that regardless of the partnership ecosystem
Mhm.
that exists, because yes, a different player might be the one executing part of the value, but more and more I'm listening to one of the things that you touched on, which is I'm not really buying the equipment at this point. I'm buying uptime,
Yeah,
because the equipment across the top 3 5 competitors is going to be fairly commoditized. So the differentiation is really around the service that I get, the reliability of achieving that uptime. and and I think the other thing I heard over there was service contracts, and earning the trust with the customer of the service contracts beyond the initial warranty period. It's it's a way to maintain that predictable revenue.
yeah, exactly. And that may come in a couple of different forms, depending upon, like I said, how the manufacturer is set up to support that and who does the work. And then also how the customer is comfortable enough to buy that. So that may be a contract or an agreement for scheduled preventive maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that out into the future. So that's either prepaid, the customer gets some security, but the manufacturer also gets some security of knowing that revenue stream that's coming. It could be a contract for just break fixes, repair work when it's covered. Think about like an extended warranty, but it also could be add-ons, a service agreement for certain inspections, diagnostic readouts on a schedule, or it could be everything together, like what you're saying. I just want to pay for the uptime. I'm willing to pay a premium for that uptime. You manufacturer and either yourself or your service provider just make sure my piece of equipment works. And I don't want to think about anything. So what we're going to see as customers find them, as our customers find the model that they're comfortable in, they're also going to have to almost think about these, begin to start thinking about service agreements as different types of products
Mm-hmm.
themselves, and they'll drive different types of revenue streams for the company, which is really kind of exciting.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna put a pin on that because I want to come back to the personalization element on most of these
Mm-hmm.
contracts. But first, perhaps a more basic question is, what's the pricing that is going to go into any one of these options? And we had a virtual workshop. We call them idea shares with a small group of leaders around a topic, and within that, 4 out of every 5 said that at least half of their contract pricing is still spreadsheet driven,
Mm-hmm.
right? 4 out of 5 are doing at least half of their revenue based out of spreadsheets. Only 1 in 6 say that they feel confident with the predictability of the revenue and the profit, that especially the margin side, that they will get during the lifetime of the contract at the moment when they're signing the contract. So there's a lot of uncertainties for such a big bet. Do these revelations surprise you? Is this similar to what you're seeing out there?
No, they don't. They don't surprise us at all. We still see a lot of spreadsheets. The old axiom of throwing bodies at a problem to see if they can figure it out. And a lot of the analysis that's either done in those spreadsheets, or we may have a customer that may have gone from the spreadsheets to static BI reporting on the most advanced side. It's all backwards looking. And one of the things that we're hearing from our customers is, as we try to unlock these opportunities, we need to be able to keep track of our costs. And our costs are moving too fast for updating spreadsheets, for backward looking BI reporting. And this is especially true if me as a manufacturer doesn't have all of the actual service data. If I've got to go get it from my network, if I've got to go get it from an independent contractor out there who may be doing the work, I'm at even a farther time delay or a lag. And then also, I don't have the ability or the time to take a look at different macro factors, material cost surcharges, tariffs, inflations. There's a lot of different balls that are up in the air here. That makes the manual process of how this used to work very, very hard to go forward in this new world. And especially if service leaders are looking for this to become a dependable, expanding revenue stream, we've
Mm-hmm.
got to put some tools and processes in place in order to be able to answer some very fundamental questions about those service agreements.
And if I could pull that thread a little bit longer, because
Sure.
everything that you say makes sense to me, right? You're not able to keep up with the speed of the data, the intelligence that comes in. But why does it matter? Like, how much of a difference can be achieved, or how much of an opportunity is missed because spreadsheets are not keeping up with the pace of the world? Well, mhm.
So there's a couple different dynamics there to think about. Number one, let's think about the cost side. Okay. you have internal costs, but then there's also going to be market costs. There could be, and then market assumptions that you want to be able to model and to be able to think about. Internal costs could be the material of the parts that are changing. You have to remember, if you're signing a 2, 3, 4, 5 year contract, you have to be able to understand, is your contract going to be profitable enough to absorb any cost increases on the
Mm-hmm.
material side? Same with labor. If your own service reps are turning the jobs, or if you have to pay a percentage of that revenue to a dealer or distributor to do the work, you have to understand those types of changes. Looking back normally causes a problem because those changes are happening so fast. By the time you're able to do the manual updates and look back, you may be underwater not only in 1 or 2 contracts, but a majority of contracts. How do you adjust midstream for your current contract setups will help you, how should I say this, make the changes for the next contract you're going to sell. Almost like changing
Mm-hmm.
a bomb from one product to another in the middle, making a change going forward. You want to make sure that that next contract that you sell for that same piece of equipment, it may be the same hours, it may be the same term length, but it may be a different price to either help those material cost changes, those labor cost changes, to absorb some of that to keep the profitability going for the manufacturers. So we want to be able to manage that going forward, and we want to be able to give manufacturers the ability to do that. The second piece is what we're going to see is, once a manufacturer has that ability to look forward on their costs, what we call cost prediction, and be able
Mm-hmm.
to stay profitable on their contracts going forward, we're going to start to see how manufacturers can respond to what we call either custom contracts, new contracts. I've got a typical contract for 3,000 hours for an asset, but I've got a customer that wants a tailored contract for 3,500 hours on a contract. Right now, in a manual process, that almost becomes starting from scratch. How do I build the cost structure, understand the cost structure to build and price that service contract properly, because it's almost a new and unique product? What we at Syncron want to be able to do and help our customers to almost automate that. So the manufacturers can look back and say, I've got a 3,000 hour contract, I've got a 4,000 hour contract as standard. I've got a customer that comes in and wants a specific 3,500 hour contract. I don't want to turn that opportunity down because that's revenue stream. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to make the customer unhappy and force them one way or another. But can I create a custom product or a new product as that service contract and be able to do that in a timely fashion? And that's one of the things that we're seeing, is be able to have that cost control, be able to look forward, and then be able to respond with unique contracts and products that need to be designed in a timely fashion to be able to respond to that customer and not let that revenue stream walk out the door.
Yeah, a lot of good things to unpack from there. The I liked how you brought up this learning mechanism first off, because many of the AI implementations that people are excited about today, that's what they depend on, right? It's continuously getting more data so that you can make better decisions tomorrow, and that is something that in static decision support mechanisms we just can't do. So remembering that basic concept is fairly critical. But then the other part that you talked about, which is, as you're adapting to the different elements, you got to do it responsibly.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just absorbing risk that you're not gonna be happy about down the road. Or as you also pointed out, you might lose the agreement just because it's taking you far too long to come back with an answer. You're analyzing it to death, still not feeling good about it, and then the customer goes away. This is not just you and I talking in this workshop that we had. The the highest the top concern about the service contracts was exactly that they felt that they took too long to create a quote,
Yeah.
right? Because of this spreadsheet driven processes. And specifically on the other side of the equation, the business results, it was both not being able to estimate the costs and the risks down the road. You mentioned some of the dynamics that we're seeing, these longer life cycles, the competition, the volatility of costs, both in labor and service parts, all over the place. Um, but also, it's how much money am I leaving on the table? Could
Yeah.
I have priced this higher? And you have both things. You want to do it responsibly, but you want to do it fast enough. And you introduced automation into the conversation as well. So if I'm putting all of this into a complicated stew, can you maybe simplify some of it? And what are organizations doing? I don't know if you have an example, or what are the key elements that need to change so that organizations can have this more reliable margin projections without taking forever to design personalized service contracts.
Yeah, so if we think about it from a mechanical standpoint, the first thing we want to be able to do is have that cost prediction locked down. That cost prediction will eliminate some of the financial risk that we're thinking about. And when we mean about cost prediction is you want to be able to have roughly 70 to 80% of your contracts having acceptable performance with the parameters from a cost side,
Mhm.
being neutral on the plus side, and then um 10 to 20% above and very few below. Okay. Getting that cost and that right mix for your business is going to be key because that lets you accelerate everything else. Okay. And what we mean by accelerating everything else is not only response time, which you talked about, and what we see is a lot of our customers said, if I'm going to move from manual spreadsheets to a more systemic driven process, I got to be able to do it faster. Well, what is how fast? We hear anywhere from 2 to 10 times faster because it's taking them certain times with how complex their equipment is, weeks to respond to a new contract request. And that's just unacceptable in today's world, especially with the competition and the third party warranty companies that are out there that could do a bunch of different things. So that type of benchmarking is what we're hearing. But then what we also understand is I got to have my attach rate increase as well. It's got to be the right cost structure. It's got to be done fast. But then also, I got to be able to sell it competitively because the customer doesn't normally have to take that contract once we're out of the warranty process. So I'm competing against a couple different factors. And certain customers that we've talked to, if they can increase their attach rate by anywhere to 3 to 5%, that means a huge amount of money for them and also a lot of revenue certainty going forward because they've got that bucket that's not only growing, but it's stable looking forward because they
Mhm.
know that their cost process. So it becomes almost like a circle there. You get the cost certainty, you're able to respond faster, you get the increased attach rates because you're able to sell those products more competitively. And you brought it up. I think what we're going to see is almost an elasticity in the contracts of the world. I wanted to meet a certain profit margin here and once I know my cost, but I can't go too far or I'm going to start losing that to the competition or customers are going to start saying no and my attach rates are going to go down. But if I can get into that sweet spot and it's going to vary by segment and it's going to depending upon also the competition. Um, but 2 to 5% in that attach rate can mean some big bucks for some of our customers.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And one last thing that I want to get into, because the way that we've been talking about it almost feels like it's not just managing the install base, but really it's almost like managing a risk portfolio and understanding all these probabilities. And with that, there's an opportunity, I would argue, of not staying with the sources of uncertainty that we feel comfortable with, which is
Yeah.
that labor cost, that with the cost of service parts and the like. But there's customer behaviors that could influence the cost structure, the performance of the assets during a service contract, and therefore the type of actions that we'll need to take, the conditions under which the asset is operating, the reliability of certain models. So you can really go deep into the install based composition, not just a model based approach, but really bringing all this data together. And and so where I would like to get your point of view is, as we hear all these conversations about uh, better data, AI getting embedded into the service chain, better understanding of risk. How, what is it that you're seeing? What is making a difference in really elevating the maturity of service contracts and how the risk is managed?
Really great question. So one of the things that we're seeing is typically most of the time a product, a machine, an asset goes out of warranty and the manufacturer begins to lose contact with that customer. Okay. There's two trends that are hopefully bringing that customer back to the manufacturer to allow for them to gather more pieces of information. The first is the telematic signals, the digital signals coming off of those pieces of machine. So as they become more digitized, they're providing information. You don't want that information to stop just because a product is out of warranty. And then you also don't want to lose the service action that was taken due to the information that's coming off a machine, a certain fault code, a certain warning signal. When something's in warranty, the manufacturer typically has the ability to close that loop of what's being done. When something goes out of warranty, the manufacturer typically doesn't. The service contract allows for an opportunity for that manufacturer to see that machine and the work being done as that machine or asset gets older because they're bringing it back into their network. They're able to say, depending upon the age of the machine, the different fault codes, um, the different alerts that are being given off, I can start to see the work that needs to be done. I can start to see how much of that work we expected beforehand actually happened because engineers have some of that predictive information today. We could start looking for almost being able to take a true life cycle picture. So the service contract, which is really, really, really cool, allows for the manufacturer to have a vehicle to maintain that full life cycle that we've always talked about, that sometimes gets broken when a product goes out of warranty or leaves
Mm.
that first owner. We want to be able to have a vehicle to bring that together to not only drive revenue, but then also to have that feedback over the life cycle of that machine or asset so that it can get better and better over time.
Yeah, no, that's great. You know, there's one of my favorite books. It's called "We Have No Idea," and
Yeah.
it addresses many of the topics that are part of our day to day, such as gravity, for example. That it says we think we understand them, but in truth, we don't. Like there's a lot of depth to that, and I think you brought that same picture over here to the concept of service contracts. It's something that we believe, yeah, I mean, it's there, it's always present, but there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of challenges that are perhaps hidden that you've helped bring to the surface, and I thank you for that. It's been a very illuminating conversation. Last, I don't want to let you go. I've picked your brain so much. Perhaps some personal passion, something outside of work that you want to share with the audience as well about Ben.
Live in the Chicago suburbs, which is pretty typical for people in the parts and service world in manufacturing to live in one of the large Midwestern cities. I got my two children. I've got a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. They keep us real busy with sports, so the weekends are packed. And then I take off my Syncron hat and put on my dad hat, and it just goes from there. So, pretty typical Midwestern life.
Nice, nice. I suspect it's actually the same hat. You just turn it around.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
like it
Especially
just
when they're
rotates. Nah, that's wonderful, Ben. So we're one step closer to the weekend, so that should be fun. We're gonna be in Chicago ourselves in less than a month for our biggest gathering of the year, the Smarter Services Executive Symposium. So shameless plug over there, but hope to see many of you in there. It's gonna be really, really fun, really insightful, just like today's conversations once was. Once again, thank you. Everybody,
thank you.
have a great rest of the week. Today's session was recorded, and hopefully you'll get to share it with your colleagues. See you next time.